Hi there, and we're live on YouTube. Myself, but I'm not on my own, waiting in the wings with his glitterati and entourage around him because he's TV's famous nutritionist and the UK's prominent nutritionist as well. It's the one and only Richard Smith.
How are we doing, man? You okay?
Yeah, doing very well. As a Liverpool supporter, I've just watched them win the Carabao Cup. For those that are not in anywhere that is anything to do with soccer or football, as it should be called, because it's people kicking a ball with a foot, that means absolutely nothing. But anyway, yes, I'm good. So I'm very happy to see that. What about yourself? What have you been doing?
I've competed today in my first cross-country race. So yeah, I'm completely wiped out.
Okay.
Yeah, super tough. It's completely different to any other type of running that I've done before. It was something like a 4.2 mile course, I think. 2 miles of which was on sand. I've never done any running or training of any kind on sand. I haven't run on sand since I was incredibly small. So yeah, it was really tough. It part of the course we ran through this big I don't want to say puddle, but it was well over knee deep. And the rest of the course then was sloppy mud, quite deep. So I was advised to wear trail shoes, which I've never worn before. I've never done any running in. Yeah, it was tough. It was really difficult. There was a few people that I'd run against recently in sort of 5K races and beaten. And they were way ahead of me. No, I just could not keep up with them with running through this sand. And my legs are absolutely in ribbons. I think I've used muscles in my legs and my feet that I didn't even know existed. So I'm in pain, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I went over to barefoot training, which is not actually barefoot, but training shoes that don't have the big spongy things, I definitely discovered muscles in my feet. And actually, the weird thing was when I went back to conventional trainers after a long time, just purely because it was very cold and it was wet, and I wanted to not get too, my feet too wet. It felt like the earth was spongy. It was really wrong. And there's loads of research about actually that sort of message back from the floor up through your foot is essential, and it is good for injury prevention. But I'm not selling those trainers for now because I have two questions already. We did tell people to get in early, and they have. Squid tooth, a question for Richard. And this is great. And I'm going to add something to this as well, because I'm interested in your thing about mTOR. So I'd like to hear that about the leucine when you're training. But Richard, can you give an example of the meals you would eat on a typical day while cutting for a show? I'm wondering how to get adequate protein while cutting the fat a bit. Great question, Squid Tooth.
Yeah, the simple answer to this is there is no simple answer. I don't have set days when it comes to competition prep. And always remember that competition prep is not healthy. It's not good for you. It pushes your body to states that are unhealthy. But, so is training for the Olympics and training for a marathon and so on and so forth. So we do these things to achieve goals. We push our body to these extremities to achieve something, which I'm glad I did. But when it came to cutting, I was always carnivore or animal based, and I'd pull the metric, the macro that would confer the biggest benefit in regards to utilizing body fat to be used for energy, and that is dietary fat. So I would always keep my fat the same, and that was typically around 1 gram of pound of body weight each day. And bearing in mind, when you're cutting for a competition, you are incredibly lean. So this is pretty close to lean body weight. So I'd stick to that, and the lever I would pull is I'd reduce the fat. So I'd start with doing 1 day of lower fat, and then I'd go back to a normal fat day, and then maybe the next day I may do 2 days, and then I may go to a higher fat day. It's important to put the fat in occasionally just to make sure that we're continuing to produce hormones and supplying the cells with essential nutrients. So I'd always be sure to put the fat back in. But I would alternate these days. I would push to extremities in which I would go, weeks without, or at least close to, very little dietary fat. And by little, I mean I was still consuming enough for my body to function and create these processes, but I'd be gravitating to leaner cuts of steak and 5 to 10% beef mince. Egg yolks were gone. Cheese was gone. The fattier cuts, the chuck steaks, were out the window. I would consume things like basa fish. Basa is incredibly high in protein. But you are severely dieting at this point. You don't become 2% body fat by being healthy. But it was typically done by feel. So when cutting, I remember giving a presentation once, and Sarah had to step in and take over for me because I quite literally could not form words. I had nowhere near enough fat within my body to allow my brain to function. Simple things. I couldn't even think of simple words, and that is the God's honest truth. We need fat; it is essential. But you'd push these boundaries in order to achieve these goals. But I would do it by feel. So after that day, that presentation where I couldn't speak, I made sure that I went home and had a nice fatty cut of steak just to keep things ticking over. But as far as how often, how long, there's no set target. You listen to your body. It is going to hurt, and it's going to hurt a lot. You are going to be incredibly hungry. There's no short fix to this. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic formula that you just you implement and it doesn't hurt. It hurts, and it hurts a lot. You crave more than you've ever craved before. You're incredibly lethargic. You're very drained and tired, and you can't focus and concentrate. You're irritable. Unfortunately, that is the path that you have to walk if you want to achieve, sort of 2% body fat. And that's typically what I would do. Coming towards the competition, 4 or 5 days out, I would begin to fat feed. So I've quite literally depleted the fat in my muscle at this point. So the fat which is stored in muscles is the intracellular myolipids. So I would use this and all the other body fat, obviously incredibly low to be 2%. But then I would refeed. So I would do 2 days of high fat refeeds. And again, typically I would consume foods that contained saturated fats over omega-3s, because omega-3s don't store very well in the body, and neither do MCTs. They don't store, they're instantly converted into ketones. So it'd be back on the 25-35% mince, the chuck steak. I'd be adding fats to everything that I was consuming, back on the egg yolks, lots of cheese, maybe even double cream at this point, because it's all about adding as much fat in as you can to fill the intracellular myolipids back up. As a keto or carnivore adapted athlete, we have the ability to store more fat in the muscle than the average person who's fueled by glucose. So I'd store a lot of fat in the muscle, and this would gain around 10 pounds of body weight within the 2 days, which is an awful lot. That's an awful lot of weight to gain in 2 days. But you're still 2% body fat. You're still ripped and shredded and lean and vascular. And then for the next 2 days, I would put carbohydrate in with low fat or no fat. So I would continue with the protein, but I would put carbs in from as clean sources as I could find. Honey is probably recognized as one of the cleanest, but it doesn't work so well for me. It causes issues with me. So I'd begin my prep with honey on some fruit, because I'd want the fructose to help fill the glycogen in the liver first. And that's around about 100 grams. So I'd want to fill the glycogen stores in the liver first before going on to fill in the glycogen in the muscle. And then I would consume white rice. White rice is lectin free, so it's going to cause far less harm. I would consume cream of rice or even Rice Krispies, but believe it or not. Rice Krispies with either with water, or I would mix a protein shake with water, and I would add that to Rice Krispies. And I would do that on lean fat then I'd begin with 1 day, but I'd increment it for X amount of hours, split out between 4 hours throughout the day, again, for this mTOR activation that you mentioned. And then I'd measure with the calipers daily, the measuring tape. And I would also, the last year that I competed, I had the in-body machine, which allowed me to get an incredibly accurate measurement of my body fat. So on a daily basis, despite consuming lots of carbohydrate, I had a very, very good means of telling whether I was actually gaining body fat with this in-body composition machine, which is 99.9% accurate to a DEXA scan. So in the early days, it was done with a caliper, literally just measuring different skin folds on my body throughout the day and every morning. If on day 2, I hadn't gained any fat on the calipers or on the in-body machine, I would then implement another day of high carb with no fat, or at least as little fat as possible, with maintenance protein to 1 gram. So maintenance would be around 0.5. And I would do that for the second day, to the point where I would slightly overspill, but then you know that your glycogen stores are full. And then you wake up in the morning, the day of the competition, you're ripped, shredded, and lean. You're super vascular because you've put these carbohydrates in. Then I would consume exogenous ketones. So I would consume exogenous ketones in shot form, obviously trying to stay super lean and shredded and trying to minimize the amount of liquid that I'm putting into my body. I'd have little tiny shots, sometimes in coffee, because coffee is incredible for bringing those veins out also. It's a known diuretic, so it shreds and rips you up incredibly well also, but it does dehydrate, and this is dangerous. I felt incredibly unwell at this point, but the BHB would take oxidative priority. So it would maintain the glycogen that I put into my muscle, as well as the intracellular mylipids, the fat in the muscle, and it would prioritize the exogenous ketones. Another thing that you can also put in is alcohol, because alcohol will also take oxidative priority. Now, many athletes will use this again for vascularity and for dryness. So sometimes I would implement with a glass of wine or something prior to getting on stage. But look, I was not healthy. I was incredibly unwell, super dehydrated. I cramped like mad for days after. And I was in bad shape, for a number of days following a competition. But I will always push to the extremities in order to achieve any goal or target that I have. And I wanted to be number 1. And that's what it took me to do. The diet and lifestyle allowed me to achieve 2% body fat, which is ridiculously lean, almost transparent. You'd die from a paper cut. You'd bleed out if you came into contact with paper. Incredibly thin, and I think it looks incredible. I'm super proud of the images, the pictures, and things that I achieved. But look, this isn't healthy. So that's what I implemented in order to do that.
Brilliant, Rich.
It's not healthy.
No, that's it. Looking extreme is exactly that. It's extreme. Now, I don't normally mention this because we're a team and I don't talk about individual projects, but Rich and I are getting together and we're doing a bodybuilding book. So I do have books, and it's in the description, the links to the books. If you want to have a look, I've done one about bloods in the context of carnivore and keto and low carb, actually. So if you're interested in that, that's there. Rich and I will have that bodybuilding book out pretty soon. So all of that information there will be in written form and a lot more with some pictures and guides and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, have a look in the description and you will see a link to my little store, which has got the books in. And then at some point, Rich and I will have a book there as well. So that's good. That's the first thing. Secondly, for those people that have put questions up, we are behind because we give full and frank answers. So if you put a question up at, let's say now, 7:15, we might get to it at past. All right. You don't have to keep writing it. That's one thing I was going to say. So we're going to go to the next question now, but I do want to thank you for that. Squid Tooth, that was really good. Rich is very popular tonight. I've been scooting through looking at the questions that are coming up. Right. Hi, guys. First time on the live, 5 weeks into Carnivore. Hi on Ribeye. That's a good name as well. 5 weeks into Carnivore. Lots of improvements. My only issue is I'm waking up at 2/3 a.m. unable to get back to sleep for 2 hours, or maybe also hungry, very hungry. Any tips? And I think he means hungry in the morning.
Yeah, so look, this is incredibly common. Steve and I also have a private group on Mighty Networks, which we'll pop a link in below. Again, we go live in there tomorrow at 5 p.m. in a Zoom type conference for Q&A, so feel free to join in there. But one of our clients or subscribers to that group is going through this at the moment, and you know, we're trying lots of different things. The last couple of things I've suggested, I haven't heard back from her yet. But we'll wait and see what comes up. But there's a number of issues. The electrolyte imbalance is a big thing. When you become ketogenic and carnivore, it throws out sodium and potassium. And I'm going to keep this as basic as I can because I think I went over too much with the last question. So electrolyte imbalance is a problem. So the issue is we're salting our meals with lots of sodium because we lose sodium when insulin drops. The issue with this is excess sodium depletes potassium. So potassium is now low. So supplementing with a quality electrolyte or potassium itself may negate this. Another factor could be oxalate detox, which again, the potassium citrate, and you want it to be citrate, can also help prevent. Electrolyte imbalance is the most common. Hormonal issues, and it could be coming off, TRT and things, for example, or HRT. But another common contributing factor to this is hypoglycemia. So when we are living this lifestyle, we're going through lots of changes. The body's going through lots of changes, upregulating lots of systems, enzymes, and pathways within the body. And we can go to bed with low blood sugar. And this can lead to a stressed state. When we sleep, we're awake. We may find we need to go to the toilet. And especially, and given the fact that this person's waking up hungry in the morning would lead me to believe that it is more to do with that. Eat before bed. Try a piece of cheese, or, if you don't want to eat a full meal, which is pretty much what I do about an hour or two before I go to sleep, have 100 grams of cheese, or, an egg or two or something. Because protein will elicit this response and help combat that also. You can use carbohydrate, but the idea is we're trying to come off carbohydrate. If you are going to go down the carbohydrate route, I would suggest something like a full fat Greek yogurt. At least you're getting some quality fats in there as well. Or even dark chocolate. 70 to 100% dark chocolate, just 1 or 2 pieces, can help combat this. You will come through it. It's just, unfortunately, it can last a little while, and it is so debilitating day after day after day when you're not sleeping and you're waking up and you're feeling tired. Stick with it. Look at the positives. Everything else is conferring a huge benefit. You've just said in the statement that you're noticing all these positives. Don't focus on the one thing that isn't working and throw the towel in just because that one thing isn't quite right. Focus on the positives, maintain the lifestyle, supplement if you have to with electrolytes, or just the potassium citrate, and maybe have a little bit to eat before you go to bed. You're muted, Steve.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think why people like this is because we're sort of yin and yang. Richard's there giving you a very long answer there. If you're peeing to in the middle of the night, getting up to go to urinate, then you're drinking too much, because you shouldn't be drinking so much that your body's waking you up to urinate. And you might want to also look up biphasic sleep or sleep cycles, because that's quite common. Don't worry about this 2-hour gap. There's over 500 ancient text references to people saying, I had my first sleep or that sort of thing. So it was common in ancient times to sleep and then wake up and actually do things and then go back to sleep. So modern day sleep and this 8 hours solid is not necessarily correct. I mean, 4 p.m., many people with a continual glucose monitor will see their blood glucose go up because their cortisol is going up, because at 4 p.m., this is not shift workers, obviously, that is the body trying to get you up. So it's a bit more in your circadian rhythms. So there we go. Right now, every single question seems to be a setup for selling something, but that's how they're coming up. Do either of you take Cerule Stem Enhance recommended by Bart Kay? I do. There's my little pot there. And I always do it for full transparency, only when people ask. I don't push it. There is a link in my in the video description. And I did an experiment where I tried it, and it conferred some benefits, and then I had a period of time where I couldn't afford it. I'm going to be really, honest. I like to be really honest with everything. We moved house and the roof leaked and it cost us thousands and thousands. And then we had a plumber who took forever to fix things. It was absolutely atrocious. Money got really tight, and I stopped. Now, that was a really handy thing for the experiment, because once I did that, I noticed differences. Now, yes, it could have been the stress. So this is actually a good analogy for what's wrong with studies. Could have been the stress, could have been the fact that we had a leaky roof, but I didn't feel as good. I just thought I deteriorated a little bit. And then once everything was sorted, the money was a bit better, I went back on it and I felt better. Yes, so it could have been the money. Yes, I get all that. But I improved before all that happened. I was on a carnivore and doing really well, and I was very convinced by the adult stem cell enhancement that it gives you, which is about an extra 21% of adult stem cells floating through your bloodstream, all scientifically backed and all that. So I tried it and I felt really well. So anyway, yes, I do. I don't think you do, Rich, because you've never mentioned it, unless you're keeping your light under a bushel.
No, it is something I'm looking into, to be honest. I'm researching heavily into this. Yeah, I respect your opinion with it, and Bart's as well. Bart is no mug by any means. That itself should say that there's confidence within the product. But again, I have no opinion because I haven't finished my research. But I shall continue to do so.
And one of the other things I want to say, and it's a little bit of an offshoot, people say, well, it's multi-level marketing or it's pyramid selling. Everything is that. If you buy something from Amazon, you're not getting it directly from the person that made it. There is a series of steps in everything you buy, and there's delivery driver making some money out of it, Amazon making some money out of it. Actually, those books I mentioned, Amazon, they take 70%. All right. And then the US withhold tax. So out of £10, I probably will see £1.70. All right. So that's pyramid selling, isn't it? I mean, that's really, lots of people taking chunks of money. And I made the book. I wrote it and I researched it, and I probably got the least out of it. So anyway, right, let's get into this next thing. Mike here. I'm currently reading The Salt Fix. That's a very interesting book, by the way. Great read on the importance of salt. I'm hoping to increase my performance and overall health by tweaking my sodium intake higher and see how it affects me. Come back and tell us how that experiment goes on. And we're going to go down to the next question. Phil Richardson is another one for you, Richard. You're very popular. Let's have a look at the chart. I've got 50 people on my channel watching, and you've got 32. So last week you were the winner, and I'm ahead this week because I told everyone off. But anyway, Phil Richardson. Hi, Richard and Stephen. Now, this is really for you, Rich. 2 weeks of having 500 milliliters, 1 scoop of your Keto Pro orange electrolyte drinks. This morning, I needed to urinate more than usual. White. This means I have enough electrolytes. And I can't stress enough, this is not a sales pitch. It is just how the questions are coming in. Very unusual for people to talk about stuff that we are selling. But anyway, good question.
Can you keep the question up 2 seconds, Steve?
Yeah, of course.
Just to come back to what you said. Yeah, that split, if you have 50 and I have 30, I'm well pleased with that, because I think you have probably 5 times the subscribers that I do. So that's not too shabby.
You're doing well. You're doing well. Yeah. And if you haven't subscribed to Richard's channel, you really should. Anyway, carry on.
Subscribe. Yeah. It's free. So yeah, 2 weeks of having 500 ml of this, I'm guessing, water with Keto Pro Electrolyte, which is exactly what I'm drinking now. Yeah, you know, you will. It's the electrolytes. It's not when we drink water, it's not drinking water that hydrates. It's the absorption of these electrolytes along with the water. I do find when I am drinking the electrolytes, I do urinate a little bit more. Sometimes it's clear. I know Steve has a chart on the color of urine that should be in, and it should be a straw color. Generally, mine is straw. Sometimes it's a little bit darker. Sometimes it's clear. I'm not overly concerned. I'm not concerned that I'm not getting enough. The best way to use the electrolytes is to do it by taste. So we are designed to make these decisions based off the senses that we have. So when people say salt your meal to taste, you know, that's exactly what you want to do with the electrolytes and indeed your food. Salt your meal to taste. Some days I don't want salt on my food. Other days I feel like my body is craving salt, so I put more salt on there. And it's as easy as that. Just adjust the taste. I tend to consume a lot more per day. I probably add half to a full scoop to maybe a glass of water, every glass of water that I drink, because I find water boring. I do a lot of training. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't drink as much water if it wasn't for the electrolytes. And if I wasn't suffering prior to that, that wouldn't be a problem, because I don't buy into drinking this 2.5 or 3 liters a day, BS either. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe we need anywhere near the amount that we are told, unless you are exerting, lots of losing lots of electrolytes and fluid through running half marathons, and so on and so forth. But the best thing to do is listen to your body. If you feel like you need more, put it in. If you feel like that's enough, keep it the same. If you feel like it's too much, reduce it. Dilute it with more water or put less in next time. Just listen to your body. It is super simple. It is honestly as simple as that.
Yeah, drink to thirst. Tim Noakes has got a book called Waterlogged, which is very interesting because Rich mentioned the marathon runners there. When they studied the Boston marathon runners and looked at their hydration status, after running 26 miles at a quite a pace, 11% were overhydrated. So it's very easy to overhydrate. Yeah. And that's actually more dangerous than being underhydrated. So do be careful. Drink to thirst. I probably mentioned this story before, but the 2.5 liters of water comes from a 1950s military study. There was a young researcher called Ansel Keys. So that's going to put you off straight away that I've mentioned Ansel Keys. Just going to remove Rich for a second. Oh, he's back now. His camera's back on. And he was doing it for the military. Now, the American military, they spend money and they want to know the real answers when it comes to putting boots on the ground and soldiers going out there. And his research said that humans need 2.5 liters of water per day. In that same report, he mentioned that we could get it from food. Therefore, we don't need to carry bottles of water. But, Evian and Buxton and all those water suppliers decided to take that bit out and just leave the 2.5 liters of water. So that's where it comes from. Drink to thirst. We've got this thing called thirst. That's great. Can you imagine if Rich and I were advising people to eat and ignore hunger? How ridiculous would that be? That would be absolutely ridiculous. So it's exactly the same. Drink to thirst and use your urine as the needle as to where you are in your hydration status. If it's clear, you are drinking too much water. If it's dark, you're not drinking enough. Salt, sodium chloride, just to make Rick happy, actually. Right, now then. Here we go. Phil D. Hi, Rich. See, you're popular. Rich, you are so popular. I can't stay online tonight, but cheers for the chat last Saturday. All going well in Try Training. My youngest also wants to sign up too. Now, this has put the cat amongst the pigeons from Matthew. So play nicely in the chat, everyone. Matthew, is buying spring water, such as Buxton water in plastic bottles, bad? Am I likely to ingest plastics if the water was stored in a warm environment? I love Buxton water, but not sold in glass bottles. Hey, that's a great question. Yes, you're right. If you leave water in a plastic bottle, in the car and it's sunny and all that, I don't know if that's particularly good. But what do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I agree. It's we're told not to drink, tap water and to drink bottled water, but then there is this concern with the microplastics, especially in higher temperature. We don't know the journey of that water. Has the sunlight been penetrating that bottle for X amount of time on its journey towards the supermarket, during storage, and so on and so forth? I'm quite lucky in regards to where I live. Well, in fact, I wouldn't say that's lucky, but I don't think living in Wales is lucky, but I don't get enough sun. I'd much rather be in a sunny climate. But the water it's not as bad as water in England, and the water from the taps, it contains way less fluoride and all the other nasty chemicals associated with tap water. So I tend to drink my tap water, I'll be honest, because I don't know of the journey of that bottled water. But ideally, we would use glass or aluminium potentially. But where does it stop? This is the tricky thing, isn't it? In regards to a similar question in regards to salt recently, which is better, pink Himalayan or Celtic sea salt, and they both have their pros and they both have their cons. But ultimately, water is still good for you. I wouldn't be overly concerned with drinking bottled water. That's exactly what I do when I'm running a race. They hand out the bottled water. I'm not going to turn down the water because I need it. So it's, yeah, there's a lot of to and fro in regards to this, isn't it? But buying bottled water is going to be incredibly expensive. I can't afford to be buying bottled water every day. So it's, you've got to do what you can afford.
Yeah, we've got a reverse osmosis system for the tap water. The fluoride, they are fighting hard, they being, the globalists, to get more fluoride in the water in Britain. But anyway, I've got reverse osmosis, and I think it's a great question. By the way, we've hit 100 views, which is great. Let's have a look. Oh, Richard, you're at 39, and I'm at 61. So, yes, thanks. You're getting up there. Right, Tam has a great question. Hi, Tam. Hi, any tips on snacks on Carnivore? Doing boiled eggs, cheese, and ham. What ham do I go for? Or can't I have ham or anything else? So, yes, you're doing boiled eggs, you got some cheese. What ham can you go for?
Yeah, it's any ham, as long as it's preference from the butcher. I don't like sliced ham from the supermarkets. I don't like any meat from the supermarkets, I'll be honest, because you don't know what they've added to it. So my opinion on supermarkets is that Lidl is probably one of the better sources, but still avoid sliced. Just buy the ham from the butcher and cut it up yourself. Ham is fine. Again, there's a lot of nuance to this in regards to what meats are better. We can, I preference the red meats, beef and lamb, over anything else. Pork and chicken is something I consume less frequently, but I do still consume it. So I'm not against eating chunks of ham as little snacks and things. But it's something I don't consume overly. As far as other snacks, there's biltong, which we used to sell. I don't know if it's still in stock anymore because it wasn't a big seller. And what else is there? There was biltong and salami sticks and things. So you can beef jerky. Yeah, the biltong. Yeah, exactly. So the beef jerky is biltong. Those are quite handy. But when it comes to carnivore, nothing beats some eggs and cheese and just taking some sliced meats with you, or some, I'd pan fry a steak and just slice it into little cubes or slithers and slices. And I used to take that with me quite often, but my requirement now isn't there anymore in regards to needing that food as regular. So I tend not to take anything to work with me. I'm not hungry. My need, for that snack has gone. So it's something that I've gone through, but you can't beat eggs and cheese.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to fry up some bacon and then cut it up and put it into a little bag and have it like sort of, as Americans call it, potato chips, or crisps, as we call it in this wonderful country. Anyway, Rich, you are so popular. Once a week man, how is Richard progressing with the unflavoured electrolyte? What might the ratio be for sodium chloride? Just to help Rick, what is the ratio for sodium chloride, potassium and magnesium?
Progressing incredibly well. We should see these towards the end of the first quarter. So yeah, super excited to get those out. I hope that they do well, because it's I've taken a bit of a gamble with these. It's one of those products that I don't know if it's going to do well, and if it doesn't, it is going to cause big problems for me. So let's hope it is loved within the carnivore community. The ratio is the same as the current electrolytes. So there's around 1,200 milligrams of sodium, around 1,000 milligrams of potassium, and just short of 100 milligrams of magnesium. The beauty with the unflavoured is that there is more electrolytes per tub, because there's less ingredients. So because the other electrolytes that we produce is aimed for the low carb ketogenic market, it contains ascorbic acid, which is one part of vitamin C. It contains stevia and citric acid, which none of those are contained within the new one. So the volume is actually a lot more. So you get a lot more bang for your buck. There's way more servings in the unflavoured. Yeah, super excited. I can't wait to get those out. I released a picture recently of the new design and how they're going to look. Yeah, they look cool. I can't wait.
I can't wait, actually. It's really good. Vitalitis is asking, Richard, did you try Mike Mentzer style high intensity training? And before you answer that, can you explain what that is as well, Rich?
Do you know, I don't know what his style of training is.
All right.
So hit me with it. Do you know, Steve?
Well, he's a bodybuilder, isn't he? And pretty famous. I will look it up for you. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'm just going to answer another question then. Rick, someone needs to make a database of all these studies. I'm doing that. And the books always have studies. I've actually put things called study time in there. So you read a bit and then there's a page with a study and a link and all that. So yeah, that's being done. I think Coach Bronson's got a book coming out with lots and lots of studies in as well. I'm currently reading that, so I'll be able to review it. Right, okay. Here we go. Emma, I'll come back to Mike Mentzer. I'm going to look it up for you. But having digestive issues and brain fog with eggs, salt and pork specifically. So I'm leaving those out for now. Why would my body suddenly react negatively to healthy foods that I've always enjoyed? So it's eggs, salt and pork.
Super common. It's something that I've noticed recently. I could consume. When I began my journey, I was thriving on more animal foods, but I was also consuming things like spinach, kale, broccoli. I would make my spinach and kale smoothies with my turmeric and black pepper every morning. And I was the healthiest and fittest that I had ever been prior to that. And if you had told me then that those items, and this is where the vegan sort of argument comes from, because I would have argued black and blue that spinach and kale was some sort of magic elixir that was allowing me to achieve all of these things. But the reality was I was healthier and fitter because of the other things that I had taken out. I was eating more of the right stuff. I was also ketogenic. The power of beta hydroxybutyrate is incredible. The things it does within the human body is absolutely sensational. All of those positives were the reason that I felt considerably better. It had nothing to do with the kale and the spinach. And then by accident, or laziness, I should say, really, I gravitated more towards animal-based because I couldn't be bothered to cook broccoli and pan-fry my kale anymore. I used to pan-fry it so it was nice and crispy with loads of salt, and it was nice. I used to enjoy it. But I couldn't be bothered. So I just pan-fried my steak, maybe some eggs, and I went 6 months without consuming these items, and I felt even better than I did prior to that. And that's what led me down the path of investigating why would I feel better by removing plants. And that led me down the path of looking into plant toxins, phytoalexins, these toxic compounds that all plants contain. And opposite, to that would be why animal proteins are so beneficial. And that's why I never really went back. But when I did put, now and again, you would go out for a meal and I would consume some of that product, and my stomach would be in ribbons after. Whereas prior to that, I was perfectly fine consuming these, spinach, kale, and smoothies every day and eating lots and lots of vegetables. But my body had moved on. And now it was able to give me what's called an exaggerated response. The second you put a compound into the body that it doesn't want, now you have this exaggerated response, which should be there naturally, but we've diminished it over time through abuse, in the same way that we do with alcohol. The first time we drink a glass of wine, we have tingles and we feel a bit tipsy. Next time it's going to take 2 or 3 glasses, and then before you know it, you're drinking a bottle or 2, and so on and so forth. But the volume of wine or alcohol that we are drinking increases, but our body's ability to recognize the damage is diminished. It's reduced because our body becomes accustomed to it. And this is what has happened after a lifetime of consuming these compounds. Our body becomes numb. Now we've taken them out and we've healed. Now we get this exaggerated response. Unfortunately, these responses come from foods that our body doesn't want. Even within the carnivore community, there are items that we consume on a daily basis, food sources that have been shown to cause gastrointestinal problems and reactions. And these things are things like eggs, coffee, fish, other seafood. What else is there? Dairy, cream, even A2 milks. The only things that haven't shown an issue, and even chicken, and this is why, coming back to the previous comment that I made in regards to the ham and only eating chicken and ham occasionally, whereas they were staples in my diet prior to that, is because I've had this response. If I eat too much pork or ham or chicken, it just doesn't sit well with me. So this is why I prioritize beef and lamb. Beef and lamb, grass-fed beef and lamb, are the only 2 food sources on the planet that haven't shown to cause any reaction in that way. Some people do seem to potentially have histamine problems, but I would still argue that it's not to do with the meats and some of the factor involved with maybe where the meat has come from, whether it's aged, what else has been added to it, and again, we can look deeper into that at another time. But beef and lamb are the only 2 items that I consume that don't cause a problem. And this is why I've moved away from the others. Salt, also something else. Anthony Chaffee doesn't consume any form of salt or electrolytes. He seems to thrive without it. There's electrolytes in all the foods that we eat. And if you are eating a carnivore lifestyle, we do get lots of potassium and sodium, magnesium within these foods. And some people don't need that requirement to put the salt in or anything else for that matter. But the fact is, most of us do. The fact, the most of us don't eat nose to tail. Most of us don't eat the cartilage off the bones and all the stringy bits. We don't crush the bones up and eat the bone marrow. We're not cutting our pieces of beef and chucking it on the floor to gather all of these salts that are on the ground and so on and so forth. But salt, there are groups of carnivores that thrive without even consuming any salt because they get enough from their diet. Unfortunately for me, with what I do, my requirement is considerably higher. Sean Baker has been known to use electrolyte supplementation also because of his requirement to do with training. So it is personal, it is individual, but yeah, it is common.
Right, Rich, going back to Mike Mentzer, I just wanted to look it up because I wanted to see if there's any nuance to it. I don't really think there is. It's just a heavy-duty training principle, high-intensity, low-volume workout. So that's basically high intensity, but, low reps, basically, and not tons and tons of it. And the focus is rest and recovery. The key principles include the idea of training to the point of muscular failure, where the muscle is worked to the point where it can no longer complete another repetition with proper form. So, that's pretty much what we talk about, isn't it? I don't think it's, so I don't think that is that much of a sort of special thing. But a great question.
It is. So, it's, again, in regards to all of the training and cutting and living a ketogenic carnivore lifestyle, it's mainstream now, but it wasn't when 10 years ago when I started. These things weren't around. So in order to achieve things that I'd never achieved, I wanted to test the things that nobody else had tested. So I experimented with lots of different ways of training, diet, nutrition, eatings, timings of eatings, but it was all evidence-based. So it was all done on scientific research. And that's how the training was with me. It was 45 minutes to an hour sessions. I'd concentrate on eccentric movements. It was high intensity, but the rep range was between 12 to 16. I'd concentrate on four sets per movement, and I'd do 4 sets in each movement that I wanted to do. So 12 to 16 sets altogether. So it was incredibly short, fast, high power, and it was in and out. I used to do a lot of supersets, but I would not spend hours in the gym like I did initially when I first began, because I thought that's what you needed to do.
Yeah, brilliant. That's brilliant. And of course, it will be in the book when we do it. So there you go. Right, Nick, seen a lot of noise about eating raw onion to increase testosterone. Would it be worth a go? I mean, that's because there's an enzyme aromatase in onion, quercetin, which you may have heard of. And all that does is it stops testosterone converting to estrogen. So this way of eating tends to do that, to be honest, and getting away from a lot of the fruit and veg that can play a role in lowering your testosterone. So I think just strength training and eating lots of good quality protein and eggs and stuff like that is all you need to do to raise your testosterone. Rich, have you got a little short, sharp answer as well?
No, spot on. I agree. It's, we look at these benefits from plant compounds, and look, they're just not there. I think with, the 14 minutes that we've got left is probably not enough time to go into the pathways and stuff involved. But unless you're sick, there's no benefit to eating a plant.
No, and the thing is, yes, there is a compound in there. It probably isn't bioavailable. It's probably locked in with something else. It probably comes with a load of side effects. Most people I deal with the bloods don't do that. They just go carnivore, and they all see an increase in testosterone. I saw an increase in 3 months of 30% at age 55, with no change in my exercising, just going from keto to carnivore. So that was that. So I've got a question from Nancy. Can you talk about the difference between a blood glucose in a panel as opposed to fasted glucose? Yes, I can do that. Right. Fasted glucose is normally done in the morning because you've been asleep and it's easier to fast. All right. So it's not really the best way to do it. If you can fast during the day and have a fasted glucose test, that helps because you've not got the confounder of cortisol kicking up your blood glucose, or the dawn phenomena. But anyway, that never happens. So that's what we have. We have most people doing it in the morning and getting their fasted blood glucose, which is a good marker of what happens when you don't consume any nutrients for 8 to 12 hours. If you fast for longer, you're not going to be compared to people that have given blood and have fasted for 8 to 12 hours. So if you think, I'm going to do a really good test here, I'm going to fast for 18 hours. Well, yeah, you're going to get a great result, but you can't compare yourself to other people if that's what you want to do, because blood ranges in a panel are compared to other people. Now, if you're biohacking and you're going to instigate 18-hour fasts, saying that because of like the 16-8 or something like that, if you're doing that as a lifestyle, then once you've done it once, you'll have to keep doing it so you can see the trends. So anyway, that's just measuring what happens to your body, how much your liver is producing glucose, which it does for everybody, even people that eat glucose. All right, so that's what that's looking at. So that's fasted glucose. Blood glucose in a panel, that is also your blood glucose on a finger prick straight away, continual glucose monitor. So that will tell you what actual glucose concentration is in the blood serum at any point. So a continual glucose monitor is fantastic because it will show you over a 24-hour period what's happening to your blood glucose. It will automatically work when you eat something. So you could look at your little bump in blood glucose and think, that was when I had a ribeye, or that's when I had some pork. You can actually see what's happening. There is more to blood glucose. You really need your fasted insulin, because you could have perfect blood glucose and very high levels of insulin. And that's why you've got perfect glucose for some people. So in the background, if you did fasted insulin as well as fasted glucose, you'd be able to track the relationship or the ratio, proportion, whatever words you want to use, between your blood glucose and the insulin in the background. I do have a really good video for this, but I haven't got time to put it on. So that's really interesting. And then if you wanted to work out your insulin sensitivity, you probably noticed I'm getting away from glucose, because it's not about blood glucose. It's about all these other things. You can do a C-peptide test. Now, when insulin is made, the vesicle splits and out goes insulin, and cleaved off is a C-peptide. And that C-peptide has a better half-life than everything else. So it sticks around, and you can work out how much insulin you're making, because it's made at the same time as insulin. So it's a good proxy marker, because the insulin starts to get used and it degrades. So fasted insulin is good, because it works out how much insulin you're producing in relation to your fasted glucose, because glucose will go, if it goes up, insulin will go up to make sure it doesn't go too far. Then you've got your normal daily blood glucose, and then you've also got your C-peptide, and that is a really good way of looking at your blood glucose. There's a couple of other things you could do, but I don't want to go into it because we've only got 10 minutes. But hopefully, Nancy, that's all right. Other than that, I'll see you on Tuesday, because I'm doing some group coaching now on Tuesday at 6 p.m. So I'll see you then. Right. Okay. Let's have a look. Next question. Unless you wanted to say something, Rich, but I thought I covered it.
You are the man when it comes to bloods.
Right, cool. Here we go. Right, carnivore muscle. I drink Evian because the deuterium is lower. Pretty much the only one I found in the UK below 150 parts per million, which is great. I like Evian, although it's spelt backwards. It's naive, just in case you wanted to know. Right, Blake, I've done OMAD for a very long time and depleted hormones by undereating. Big problem. Undereating is a big problem. However, I'm concerned about insulin resistance. Now I'm eating 3MAD. I don't snack. All right. So insulin resistance. Well, that's your cells actually not wanting energy in rather than the other way. Now, if you are under eating for a long time and you've depleted your hormones, you probably do need to catch up and make sure that you're getting plenty of fats and plenty of amino acids to heal. Your insulin sensitivity will increase actually rather than decrease, because insulin doesn't go up when you're eating fats anywhere near as much as when you're eating carbs. So you will probably have a lower background level of insulin, which your cells will love, because the fat is, very poor analogy, like slow release energy compared to carbohydrate, which is fast release. So the fast release of blood sugar causes your pancreas to go, right, guys, let's have a lot of insulin, please, and we're going to bring that spike down. Well, this actually explains the sugar crash. So if you eat at 7 and your blood sugar goes up, your insulin goes up, brings it down rapidly because it's disproportionately raised by stuff that we shouldn't be eating. And the pancreas is, an organ that is not expecting that amount of blood sugar. It releases a lot of insulin to stop you going hyperglycemic. Hyper just means above. And you tend to find that it's inappropriate, slightly higher release than it should be, because of the refined nature of what you're eating. And you therefore get that sugar crash about sort of 11 o'clock in the morning, and you feel really hungry. And that makes total sense. So then you snack and you go through that roller coaster. Well, that doesn't happen with this way of eating. So, Blake, keep coming in and we'll hopefully help you through this. Rich, again, anything?
All good.
Okay. Well, I feel like a kid at school. I keep passing my test. Right. Jacqueline, I have low HDL cholesterol. How easy can you raise it? How long will it take in general? And what is best to eat? Is that only fat meat? You or me? It's up to you.
Yeah, I can go to town on this if you want, but it's look cholesterol.
Yeah, do it, man.
It's incredibly complicated, and we want higher HDL, but we also want higher LDL. LDL can be bad for us, or it can be good for us. It can be damaged, i.e., glycated and oxidized, or it can be healthy. LDL heals and repairs the body. LDL is just as important as HDL. Now, when the LDL particles leave the liver, they travel through the bloodstream, through the body, dropping off lipid cargo, becoming an IDL, an LDL, VLDL, and so on and so forth. And they go back to the liver to be recycled and sent back out as another VLDL particle. And again, this process continues. Every particle contains a receptor called an ApoB100 receptor. Every particle has one. But when they're damaged, the liver no longer recognizes that particle as an LDL particle, and it rejects its entry into the liver. And that leads to a whole host of problems, because ultimately what happens is it still continues to travel through the body, trying to perform its job, and it will travel into the subendothelial space in order to drop off lipid cargo to heal and repair, because this is what LDL does. But within the subendothelial space, there are cells called macrophages. These macrophages recognize this damaged ApoB100 receptor, and they open up and allow access to this damaged particle, and it'll cram them in. They'll keep cramming them in until it grows into something called a foam cell, and it's this foam cell that is the start of an atherosclerotic plaque in basic terms. So that's why LDL gets a bad rap when it comes to cholesterol. But LDL in a healthy state is incredibly good for us. My LDL, for example, is 8 something. My total cholesterol is double figures, 10 something. I think it did dip in the last one, but it's back up again now. My HDL is, oh my goodness, I can't even remember, but it's it maybe 2 something. I'll have to get the figures out. But my predominator there was my LDL, and I'm not concerned. I want it to be higher because LDL is protective and it heals the body. But what we want to do is prevent it from becoming glycated and oxidized. Glycation through excess carbohydrate consumption, which causes the cell to become sticky, and oxidation from seed oil consumption, amongst other things. So avoiding the seed oils and the carbohydrates prevents this glycation and oxidation. And also, when you reduce these toxic compounds, this also lowers our triglycerides. Now, the triglycerides are the magic sort of number here, because one thing that we want to look at on a cholesterol panel is the triglyceride to HDL ratio, which the lower, the better. If LDL is high and the triglycerides are low, and this triglyceride to HDL ratio is 1.51 or lower, so 1.5 is okay. Below 1 is even better. Below 0.5 is better still. It's that ratio that's incredibly important, and that tells us whether our LDL is in fact damaged, i.e. oxidized and glycated, or not. It becomes pattern B, whereas when it's healthy, it was pattern A. So eating healthy, reducing the triglycerides by default will help increase the HDL as well as the LDL. But it's not what you eat that alters the profile in regards to, do I eat more fat to increase my cholesterol? It's more to do with removing the vegetable oils, because all we see with cholesterol is an increase back to a natural physiological level. We're not eating fat and then causing an increase in cholesterol, LDL or HDL. We're removing the vegetable oils, which is blocking our body's ability to process the body's cholesterol. It looks almost identical to human cholesterol, and the body mistakes it for that, but it's a toxin. And we know this because people who are unable to release this toxin from the body suffer with a serious condition called cytosterolemia, which if you Google, you will see it brings on increased risk, massive increased risk of cardiovascular disease, which goes against everything that we've ever been told in regards to this compound that we are told to improve cardiovascular health. So when we remove this vegetable oil, our cholesterol returns back to a natural physiological level. And when this happens, HDL increases, the triglycerides come down, and LDL will quite likely go up, which is very common in people who've been living this lifestyle for a long time. But that's not to be concerned. Again, LDL is protective. It isn't just HDL that we want to get up. HDL we want high, LDL we want high, but we also want triglycerides to be low.
Excellent. And we have 2 minutes to go. And just so you know, I had 57 people watching just now, and Rich, you had 59. So excellent. Woo. So that's it. You see, Carnivore is not a sprint; it is a marathon. And over an hour, your team swarmed up and overtook. So that's great. Carsten, how long would you not eat before testing for triglycerides? Like I say, 8 hours is the norm for many people. Don't have any coffee, don't have any tea, don't have anything. Generally just drink water. And if you do 12 hours, I think that's going to give you a good idea. And then every time you test, do it for 12 hours. I do strongly recommend having a look at the books in the description at my little store which sells books. And we're going to be over at the other platform, which is also in the description. I've got my act together. I worked out how to do it. It's Rumble's fault, by the way. But now we're able to put the link in the description to this video to the next hour. Well, it's not an hour, but you know, we're going to be there at 8 o'clock on the hour. And I've also put it in the chat. So thank you everyone for watching. Richard, do you want to say goodbye?
Yep. Thank you all. Great to have you all again. Fantastic numbers, growing week on week. But if you can jump over to the other platform, we will see you there and maybe get into some more controversial stuff.
Yeah, and it rhymes with apple crumble. We'll see you over there. Or we will. We will see you over there.